So, and that is in the case of a country where the difference in GDP between the North and the South is only a matter of 10% or 15%, but between Israel and the Palestine territories, it's a matter of 10 to 1. So you can imagine my coming to Jerusalem and saying, well, here is a proposal, you introduce a basic income that will cover the whole population with a massive redistribution from Israel, from the state of Israel to the Palestine territories. So that certainly doesn't seem to be anything like a recipe for peace. Indeed, one of my great surprises when I arrived to Jerusalem was the tremendous amount of resentment that existed in most of the population in the state of Israel towards the minority, 8% of Hasidics who live in Jerusalem, have large families, receive child benefits for these large families, receive a small allowance, a small basic income to the extent that they keep studying, which they do all life in the yeshivas, at the expense of the rest of the population, which does the military service, which the Hasidics don't do, etc. So if there is any perceptible tension in the state of Israel today, it's precisely because of this redistribution that goes on between two groups. So, and that's my final word, so that, and so not very, does a kind of basic income really help us to achieve peace? If so, how? Well, I believe in two main ways. One is, as is often said, there can only be a lasting peace if there is justice. But it's not only if there is justice, but if there is perceived justice. Hence the importance, and Fabio gave an interesting talk this afternoon about that, hence the importance of framing, including in public opinion, framing the issue of redistribution in the proper way, making people perceive that this basic income, it's not grabbing some of the fruit of the work of the hard workers to redistribute it to others. It's simply distributing in a fairer way, in a more fair way, these benefits, these gifts, which we are receiving from nature, from past technological progress, incorporated in know-how of our society, and so on, and distributing these gifts in a more fair way. And we need that in order to achieve a durable peace. Not only we need justice, but we need justice perceived, a situation that's perceived as just by all. This is certainly one important condition for justice to contribute to peace, for a fair distribution system. Another one, and again the Hasidic case is relevant here, another one, also alluded to by Claus, is that we need, wherever any redistributive system of this sort is introduced, well, we need also people to form a real community, not just a society with institutions, but really to mix together in all sorts of ways. First precondition being having a shared language, but there are far more conditions, having no school segregation, no residential segregation, so that people can meet in these various ways. There were 100,000 Hasidics in the streets last week in Jerusalem because they objected to their children being mixed with Sephardi Jews at schools. This is obviously not the way in which you can create a solidaristic society. Finally, the reason, the way in which basic income can be an instrument for peace is first that it helps us achieve justice, but it will also help us achieve peace if this is perceived as being just by the relevant community. But there is also another way in which basic income can contribute to peace, which is by stabilizing population. Someone made that remark at one of our earlier plenary sessions. It is obvious that especially non-conditional redistributive system, benefit system, such as a basic income, has an effect of stabilizing the population. That is the case in Brazil, would be the case in Europe if we had that at the European level, would be the case also at the global level. And by stabilizing the population, it reduces all the conflicts that unavoidably arise when you have massive immigration. That is often perceived by the local population as a real invasion by people with whom they find it difficult to interact. So by stabilizing the population, you don't need to keep everyone in place. But it's important that our population should not be constantly disturbed by massive migratory movements. So for this second reason, so irrespective of helping us to achieve justice, basic income, having these stabilizing factors, can also contribute to peace. So next time I go to Jerusalem, maybe I'll be a bit bolder and follow Eduardo's advice and say, well, why don't you introduce something like a basic income, be it at a low level? This will help that on the day you'll be able to form a federation between Jerusalem, the State of Israel, Gaza, and the West Bank. You need something like a basic income in order to stabilize the population so that not everyone converges on a certain place. At the moment, this is politically unrealistic, but of course, it is part of our role to say what needs to be done long before it becomes politically realistic, politically feasible, because desirable things, would never become politically feasible if we don't start thinking about them, arguing for them, advocating them long before they are politically feasible. Thank you.
When I went to Iraq in early 2008, I told the Iraqi authorities that the Brazilian coach, Jordan Vieira, had told in an interview that it was very difficult in the beginning to tell the Shiites to pass the ball to the Sunnites, to the Kurds, to the Christians, and so on. But once he could harmonize the team, he got the Iraqi to be the champion of Asia. Well, I believe very much that the basic income as well as soccer are excellent instruments for peace in the world. And there is just one person today that is in a state of grace, and this is from Holland, Robert van der Wiel, that was today applauding his team with so many Brazilians around. But please, now, Robert van der Wiel, your word on how the basic income and soccer may contribute for justice and peace.
Well, as far as peace is concerned, I don't want to say much about basic income, but I want to say something about soccer. That I have decided when the third goal was scored. I mean, not the third goal in favor of Holland, but just the third goal. When the game was more or less decided, to absorb all the feelings of depression of the Brazilians, and I still feel it in my gut. And I hope sincerely that will contribute, at least in a microclimate in this hall, to some peace. But I want to say something about basic income, obviously, and I want to concentrate on justice. I want also to concentrate on a classic case for basic income that needs restatement. So